The Celestial Mandala of Service podcast accompanies you to discover the 11th constellation of the Wheel of the Zodiac that we call Aquarius, associated with the service field of concrete knowledge and science, and a capability that will characterize a deeper understanding of life in the new era. Welcome to this 11th episode of this cycle of podcasts dedicated to human service fields. And this month, in the sign of Aquarius, we'll be focusing on the field of science and how we might imagine a new way of understanding the underpinnings of our world in the new era of human life. My name is Lorraine Flower, and I'm a member of the Community of Living Ethics and your host for this podcast today. Aquarius is an air sign, and it could be called the light that ever shines in the dark. Aquarius itself is a sign of the fifth ray of concrete knowledge, science, and technology. And it's from this center of applied intelligence that Aquarius influences our life. It is connected to the circulatory system, while its polar opposite, Leo, is the ruler of the heart. The soul-centered Aquarian has learned how to be heart-centered. And it is from the heart, through her mind and social networking capabilities, that Aquarius rising is able to disseminate her inner vision for the benefit of humanity. A key focus of the soul expression of Aquarius is to those devices and processes that place as much information as possible in the hands and minds of as many people as possible. So to experiment, create the new, but stay centered in the heart, expressing the purest form of love in terms of its usefulness to society. Love which is pure and potent because it emanates from the benevolent energy of Jupiter and extends in ever more expansive circles through group orientation and group consciousness. So bringing together new, expanded and transformed concrete knowledge with the heart could lead us to a new understanding of the science underpinning our world. To help us reflect on this topic of new science, I'd like to welcome our friend Leili Khosravi, doctor, researcher, and observer of the emerging insights of what was once called heretical science, but which today begins to reveal itself and its evidence. Leili will help us reflect together on the characteristics of new science. Welcome, Leili.
Thank you, dear Lorraine, for this opportunity to talk about science together with you.
No, it's wonderful. It's wonderful. And science is not my core topic. So I'm certainly hoping that I will learn as we go through today as well. It's not my automatic.
You're going to discover it is your topic too. You
Exactly.
Don't know what it is.
Exactly. And this is what I hope our listeners will find, that it's for those who aren't naturally drawn to science, that it's everybody's topic. So in that sense, let's get on with our first question. And I'm curious to understand more about what science means to you today. Help us to understand what this word science really means, Leili.
I would like to start a little bit about the history. In the last 200 years in the scientific field, humanity has carried out a process of analysis, developing various increasingly specialized branches of science, distancing humanity and even the scientists themselves from a holistic vision of the science and especially of the life. Today, science as a whole is facing a deep conceptual and spiritual crisis, in my opinion. The only possible way to overcome this crisis is ethics in science. I mean, the common good, the good for our planet and all the kingdoms that it habits. Ethics in the sense of responsible and correct relationship. So we move away from this common good or right relationship when science works for a small goal for the benefit of few, bettering through, and above all, ethics. I believe that every scientific paradigm arises from the beliefs that dominate the mind of the scientist and the society to which he belongs. So, to renew the scientific world, first of all, the man of science must change their beliefs and open their mind for a new vision of the universe and especially the mankind. We should consider that the human being is not only a biological entity, but also a spiritual one that is interconnected with all kingdoms and dimensions not perceived yet by our macroscopic senses. New science is aware that the foundation of life are not power and competition, but communication and cooperation. And cooperation only works if it is based on the truth in sense of ethics, what we were telling before. And then in conclusion, I would like to add, any isolation leads to loss of balance in human physiology. And disease can appear. Just as any cultural, economic, or political isolation can lead to war, what we are assisting right now. This is exactly effect of vision of isolation.
It's fascinating, Leili, what you share with us, because we have chosen this topic of science in the astrological sign of Aquarius. And Aquarius invites us to unite the heart and the mind and to bring our desire for analysis and understanding and information, but to unite it together with that circulatory function of the heart and the love that the heart brings forward. And I hear that in how you're describing science, but I also imagine it to have been a little more present in some of the previous, I'm going to say, scientists, the people like Leonardo da Vinci. Although very mathematical, one imagines that there was a lot of passion and life and heartfulness in his work, but I may be mistaken.
No, it is exactly so. But in the last era, that was a person, a heroic person was appearing and doing that. But today, what I feel really is society is pushed to change their mind and the vision of the world. I don't think they're gonna existing again a person. We must think about the group vision. But when I talk about the group, I'm not talking only about humanity. This process which we are living, it's not only for humanity, it's for the planet. But who must change his mind and beliefs is exactly humanity, and especially in science. Because in last 200 years, what I was telling, for me is amazing to see. Yeah, we had a lot of developing, a lot of new things, but always with the separation, even the branches of the science. And this is a pity, because there is no communication between different branches. And that means no communication, so no cooperation. no united vision. And that's a really pity. I think it is end of the time. And exactly under Aquarius and under the pressure of new era is coming, it's time to come together.
Yeah. Yes, and we're seeing this theme of group and group consciousness come much more to the fore. And in many of the wisdom texts, the ancient wisdom texts, we see that the group of scientific servants has the task of revealing the essential spirituality of all scientific work. And I think I hear you speaking of that spirituality, not just as a as religious beliefs, but as a fundamental expression of who we are as living beings, be human, animal, plant, or mineral. But that science of the future would be motivated by a love for humanity and its well-being, which is what I hear you talking about. But it seems to also link science to religion and revealing that the glory of God, if we can use that word universally, through the tangible world and tangible works. So when you look at science in the future, do you imagine that we can see a resolution of the ancient conflict between science and religion? Will we see the mind and the heart coming together and these ethics towards the greater good that you're speaking of? Will we see that come through in an improved communication, improved relationship between science and religion?
Oh, dear Lorraine, thank you very much for this question. It's lovely because, actually many independent scientists around the world are working exactly in that direction. In fact, we are talking about frontier science when you talk about this situation. In the last century, we are witnessing, all of us, two antithetical currents of science. One, on the one hand, we find the academic science as victim of an obsolete and separative and materialistic vision. On the other hand, with the advent of the quantum vision, we can see the birth of a new current of science that begins to re-examine the reality from new perspective by not isolating the object it studies from the whole universe. Science cannot deal with humanity unless it includes other kingdoms and the planet as a whole. And we know the truth incorporates many aspects and scales of life. In the quantum age, which we are living right now, science is called to create a synthesis between various branches of science. It means, for example, linking physics to medicine. We are doing right now this. Geology to archaeology. So the vision of the age is going to change. And why not? Absolutely, we must consider to link quantum physics to cosmology. You see, they seem actually really far, but they are not. They have really the linking point, which we are invited to take part and study it. This new attitude leads to an expansion of the meaning of life as a cosmic process, and finally discovers the study of consciousness as an essential part of science, obviously not deviating from the scientific method. This is really important. And exactly here, ethics become the fundamental part of scientific method. Scientific language has always made it possible to overcome linguistic, religious, or political barriers so that it becomes an instrument of peace and dialogue between peoples and between the different forms of life that populate our planet. This allows us to go even beyond the plans of existence to which we are aware today. Here is the connection, create communication between many scales of being. For me, it is an obvious bridge between religion and science. So they are not going to be two different things, but they become one. And they were always one, in my opinion. The problem was the limitation of the mind of scientists and human beings.
I'm smiling. I know our listeners can't see that, but I'm smiling because as you speak, I'm getting a very clear sense of a web, a network, a series of filaments that are interconnected at all levels. And yes, that can feel a bit overwhelming, I think, sometimes to think, well, we have to connect so many dots. And yet right at the center of that is that unity, that sense of oneness that some people might call God, other people call life, other people give it other names, but that sense that when we really, really stop and look into our heart, we know that we are all connected and that all things are connected, and therefore allowing that communication flow between not just science and religion, but science and all departments of human life and science within itself strikes me as a really, really important part of...
it is not important how you call it.
No.
But how you are how you are connected with this sense of life. And then, exactly then, you can act in that direction. Yeah. And that division, which we call isolation, we call before isolation, create only difficulty. Mm. It's not pro-life. Mm. Absolutely, it's not pro-life.
And we see, in some of the most difficult ways, but we've been seeing so much more of that illustrated in these last few years, haven't we? Of that connection, that point of similarity and interdependence between not just members of humanity, but our relationship with the planet, our relationship with all kingdoms. It's very much at the forefront. What we don't necessarily fully understand is how we get to play our part in that. And so I want to bring us to something that might be useful to our listeners in a more everyday sense. And I'm wondering whether you have some thoughts about how each of us can collaborate more to bring this field of service of the new science of science into our everyday lives, even if, like me, I don't consider myself a scientist, but you've already illustrated that that's not needed. We're all scientists at some level. But how can I bring this into my life more practically? What can people do that might feel more accessible to them in this space?
I love this question because, when we talk about science, many people tell us, that's not me. So let me stop to here. But perhaps not many of us can define ourselves as scientists, but we are all researchers. This attitude belongs to every human being in whatever field he deals with. So it is really important, really important. So research filled by love for the truth consecrates us to be a server, the one who dedicates his daily life to the good, to the beauty, and to the truth. I'm really experienced. Research is a heroic enterprise in which one must believe and apply oneself with tenacity. Absolutely. For being researchers, we must develop the ability to get out of a limited vision of ourselves at first, and then limited vision of life, because we think life means biological life. No, we must really change our mind about this, because even the computer, when we are working on with that, is alive. They answer to you. And keep in mind that without research, there is no development and progress, where progress does not mean only technological development. I am exactly talking also about the effects that the tension toward research creates in our organism, in particular in our brain. I'm talking about physical brain. Neuroscience evidences that research tension, especially if it is driven by common good and truth, increases interconnections of the neocortex, developing our cognitive abilities that become more and more broad and refined. One of the immediate effects we can observe is the expansion of telepathic abilities. And this is exactly a reflection of these connections which we are telling. Here, scientific research helped to develop these skills both horizontally and vertically, means telepathy with its own spiritual aspect. And that means naturally in everyday life, greater insights, and allow us to access to the cosmic consciousness naturally through our spiritual being. Could you imagine each person become a channel of communication with the knowledge pool? It is cosmic knowledge pool. Thus, the researcher becomes a bridge between man and the spiritual world to which we belong, and we need to be connected. I'm talking in this point as a doctor. This is a need.
Again, I'm inspired by what you share, Leili, and this, as you were speaking, what I was sensing is the level of passion and enthusiasm and energy that you bring to the subject of being a researcher, and that the curiosity that if we can allow ourselves to step into that space of curiosity and seeking information, insights, understanding, that we vitalize our own life, but we also vitalize the lives of others as well. So again, I'm hearing that very powerful connection between the head and the heart coming alive through this practice of research, which is wonderful, really exciting.
Now you feel yourself a little bit more researcher. Now you
I feel I can identify a little more now with this notion of being a scientist, but as a researcher.
This is lovely. This is lovely. This is the started. We must just recognize ourselves and permit to allow ourselves to be.
Yes. Yeah.
When the people tell me, oh no, I'm not religious. I don't know, go to mosque or church. All of us, we are religious. All of us, we are researchers. Otherwise, no sense to live, in my opinion.
Yes. Well, and actually that, in my experience, you when you see people who have retreated from life in many respects, then you can actually visually see life force draining away from them in many respects, because they've stopped being curious, they've stopped engaging with the process of life and wanting to know more about this fabulous experience, even if it doesn't always feel that way every day. But it is a miracle that we are living and part of. I mean, we ask this of every person who comes to join us in these podcasts, and I'm not sure this is easy to come to a summary about, but I wonder if you have a thought, Leili, that you could share with us that's a sort of one sentence summary or a thought form or an idea that would that our listeners can take away as something that they can just connect into on a daily basis if they want to develop themselves a little more in this field. What would you say to those who are listening?
Oh my God, I can just spread an Aquarian projection, that I can tell. I really believe, and what I really love to tell, to remember to each of us, humanity is not isolated, but is an integral part of cosmic life, not planetary, cosmic life. This is a scientifically proven fact. I hope that one day this vision will be brought into economics and politics, but also into the medicine and school education. Then living in a peaceful relationship between nations, between humanity and other kingdoms, will no longer be wishful thinking, but become reality. This is what really I wish.
What a beautiful wish. Thank you. And such a beautiful way to end our short chat, because I know there is so much more that could be said, but I'm sure our listeners will take something very powerful from what you've shared with us today, Leili. And I can only thank you again for taking the time out. And as we were saying before we started recording, to step into your own courage to share your thoughts in a language that's not your native language. So thank you for doing that as well, which
thank you for
we
invitation.
Really appreciate.
I try just compensate my difficulty in language with the love which I really apply myself to the research. So I hope could be useful this for understanding.
It shines through. It shines through. So thank you again. And I hope we can invite you back again at some point in the future. But for now, Leili, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
This podcast was offered by the Community of Living Ethics, Umbria, Italy, and freely inspired by Aldebaran, the community's Astrosophy group, and by our research on service.